So, good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this session of the Global Energy Utility Digital Week, proudly brought to you by Ryzen Energy and broadcast by Informa Markets. This afternoon, where I am, it's this afternoon. My name is Lionel, and I will be the MC for this event. Now, events like this online usually go with, everyone tends to be very stiff in live events. But here, what we want to do this afternoon is to have something a little bit more casual, a little more interactive. So for that to happen, for those of you on the browser, if you could scroll right to the bottom of your screen, what you will find is a series of buttons and clicks where you'll be able to find out more about the speakers, about the session. You will also have an option for those of you who have questions that are coming up. There is a Q&A button there as well, all right? So if you want to find out more about the speakers, you can click on that to find out more about their background. And if you want to have a question, wherever you are, I've seen the list here and it is quite an international crowd. Thank you very much from wherever you are for spending this time with us. Right, so what we have here is an opportunity now for us to share what we've done here in our particular country, on policies and programs that we're running, a way for us to be able to share and hopefully help other people in other parts of the world as well. And for this, we have a lineup of some very experienced speakers, and they'll be able to share from their experience what exactly or how they've actually been able to, or involvement in what they've been doing and how they've been able to carry this out. Now, for the first speaker for this afternoon, I've known this lady for many years. She's a very strong advocate for renewable energy. She's a very strong advocate for all things green and environmentally friendly. She is the, she is the Chief Strategic Officer of the Sustainable Energy Development Authority of Malaysia. And if I may, at this point in time, introduce Dr. Chen Wei to take over from here. Over to you, Dr. Chen.
Thank you very much, Lionel. And Lionel, thank you very much for your very generous introduction. And also, of course, I'd like to thank the organizer for giving SEDA this opportunity to speak in your webinar. And by way of introduction, in case any of your viewers are not so familiar with SEDA, we are a government agency reporting to the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources. And SEDA was established in 2011 under the SEDA Act. And our key roles are to advise the minister and the relevant government entities on all matters with regards to sustainable energy. Our core functions are to implement the feed-in tariff as well as net energy metering. And we also provide technical facilitation and development services. Right, okay, next slide. Okay, great. So today our webinar is focusing on flattening the climate curve, specifically how we can monetize the sun. I think for the first half of the year, the world has been through some really rough seas. And I'm referring to the coronavirus pandemic, the waves that almost paralyzed the global economy. Now, are there any lessons that we can learn from this COVID-19 pandemic? And I think by now, most of us are inundated by the call to flatten that pandemic curve. And I think one insight that we gain out of this is that countries need to respond very fast. And we also need to act collectively. You know, flattening the pandemic curve will not work if no one cooperates on the measures that's needed, the intervening measures. So I think with this on hindsight, if you look at the slide here, we do have a bigger wave that is to come really, and that is the climate change. And the climate change crisis is not going to be any different from the COVID pandemic. For one thing is that it is universal, and it doesn't have any regards for boundaries. It doesn't really care what social class or status you belong to. It just impacts everyone. And I think the insights that we should draw from the COVID-19 pandemic is that for this climate pandemic, we should also try to address it collectively and we should try to address it very urgently. So where are we in the climate barometer? So you can see from the slides here, as of actually August the 5th, the CO2 concentration in the air is around 414 parts per million. But what does this mean? So science advisors for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, have estimated that CO2 concentration should not exceed 450 million parts per million in order for the global average temperature to be kept below the 2 degrees Celsius. And 450 parts per million implies that there is a 50-50 chance of limiting global warming to 2 degrees Celsius. And the 2 degrees Celsius is ultimately the limit of the temperature that we should try to avoid the increase in order to avoid significant and potentially catastrophic changes to our planet. And according to the IPCC report released back in 2018, the kind of timeline that we are looking at is really less than 30 years. Yeah, we're talking about by the year 2049, we would have used up the carbon budget if our emission goes on business as usual. So it's really not a surprise that many countries and corporates today, they've pledged to achieve carbon neutrality by the year 2050. Yeah. So I think the good news here is that energy transition is on the way. And you can see from a recent report by RAN21 that as of end of 2019, renewables have contributed 27% of the global electricity production. And this has grew a little bit from 26% in the year before. And also PV has recorded the highest growth rate among all renewable resources for 2019. And that's really not a surprise given that PV prices have gone down so tremendously over the past years. But by the way, IRENA has also released a report earlier this year. And according to them, in 2019, renewables account for 35% in terms of the global installed power capacity. So this particular slide is really my key slide for the entire presentation. So this is where I'm going to talk about the global PV market trends, and of these trends, which are the ones that Malaysia has adopted and also is currently adopting. So basically, in terms of PV market globally, we are dominated by the utility scale and the rooftop market. Utility scale on a global basis is around 65%, rooftop is around 35%. But in Malaysia, as of 2019, the utility scale in terms of the installed capacity is about 55%, and rooftop is around 45%, yeah, and that's in Malaysia. So if we look at the utility scale first, most countries would have started off with regulated tendering by the government, and so has Malaysia. In Malaysia, we have the large-scale solar tendering that is conducted by the Energy Commission, and we call it the LSS. And actually, at the moment, the ST has floated the call for LSS4, which I understand will be closing by 2nd of September. And this LSS4 will have a total capacity of 1,000 megawatt. And it was actually announced as part of the economic stimulus package that was announced by the government in February this year to actually help kickstart the economy after the coronavirus pandemic. Now, from the regulated tendering, globally, there is also a move towards the corporate PPAs, yeah? And by this, we are talking about, especially in the electricity market that is open, these are the front of the meters PPAs. And according to a report released by BNEF early this year, there is a rise in corporate procurement of green energy through the corporate PPAs. In fact, corporate PPA in 2019 increased 40% compared to 2018. And 80% of the corporate PPAs are really found in the United States alone, with some of them from the Mpia and the APAC region. Yeah, and also when it comes to corporate PPAs, there are two types. One is the direct and the other is the synthetic, or sometimes we call it the virtual PPA. So direct PPA is when you have the solar electricity that is actually taken physical delivery. But for synthetic PPAs, it's mainly a financial arrangement, largely based on a contract for difference. That's the PV developers will settle with the corporate buyers. Normally, the value that they transacted for is on the RECs, or the environmental attributes. Yeah? So from there, we can also see that there is, in terms of the applications for the utility scale, started off largely from the ground mounted, but today we have also had on the water bodies, the floating PV. So in Malaysia, we also have ground mounted, and we also have a few of the floating PV applications in Malaysia. And we do have a huge potential in terms of floating PV applications. In fact, the largest technical potential in terms of floating PV is found in the state of Sarawak. There's about 11 gigawatt potential, and as a whole for the country, there's around 16 gigawatts. So we'll move on from the utility scale to the rooftop market. And traditionally, it is on the rooftop is mainly for the NAM or the CellCo that is on site. And typically, the procurement is actually through the outright purchase. And but we can see that globally there is a trend that instead of just outright purchase, there are new financing models that's been extended to the leasing and PPA. And that's basically for on-site PPAs. These are the behind the meter. That's what BTM stands for, the behind the meter solar businesses. So in Malaysia, rooftop markets really started off with the feed-in tariff that's back in 2011. And because PV prices have dropped so drastically, by 2016, we have developed new programs for PV rooftop that is under the net energy metering and self-consumption. Yeah, and only we can see that we have also leasing and PPA that actually took off from last year. And from our database, we can see that 33 megawatt of the NAM that has been taken up is actually taken up under the leasing and PPA model. So in SEDA's website, if you go to our website today, we have around 150 PV service providers. And for leasing companies, we have registered around 105 companies. So under the NEM, if you are a foreign company in Malaysia, you can apply for the net energy metering. And if you are a foreign company, you can also offer leasing services. And the final frontier that we have at the moment is the P2p Energy Trading. And thanks to also, of course, the increase in digitalization in the energy space, globally, we can see that P2P, although it's still quite a niche market, and we can see that P2P is happening in small scale and in pilot run. And for Malaysia, in SEDA, we have actually mooted up the P2P Energy Trading under a pilot run, jointly together with the Energy Commission as well as TNB. We started that for an 8-month trial period at the end of last year in November, and we ended in June of this year. So we are at the moment preparing a report for our ministry on recommendations on the way forward. And lastly, for the ground mounted, at the start of it, there was a single procurement. Basically, what it means is that utility buys off excess electricity from one single PV application. But moving forward, we can see that there is a role in terms of aggregate procurement, similar to a concept of the virtual power plant, whereby different PV systems can actually pool together their excess electricity and sell it off to a single buyer. And basically that is very helpful for corporate buyers who wish to meet their ESG compliance. They can actually do an aggregate procurement of all the solar PV from various buildings. Yeah. Okay, so just to share with you, Malaysia, we do have huge solar potential. Last year, SEDA developed the Renewable Energy Transition Roadmap, and one of our scope of this study is actually to estimate the technical potential of various renewable resources. And in total in Malaysia, our estimated technical potential is around 269 gigawatts, of which the rooftop application is around 42 gigawatt. So this particular chart, you can see the rooftop potential spread across the different states in the country. And the chart at the bottom right of the slide shows the irradiation for different parts of the country. Right, I think I've talked about the NEM just now, and this particular slide, I know it's a bit small, but I can just let you know that the remaining quota that we have until end of this year is around 237 megawatts. Yeah, I think there is an important message that I want to bring to the viewers is that the NEM that started off with 500 megawatts, we are due for completion by end of this year. So you need to put in your applications and have your applications approved by 31st December 2020 in order for you to be eligible for this NEM quota. Basically, this NEM, it is based on a one-on-one compensation rate, vastly improved from the earlier years. And basically what it means is that if you have excess solar energy, you can sell it to a TMB will, as an off-taker, will take it on a one-on-one basis with your tariff. And this works out to be quite advantageous, especially during the MCO period. If your businesses are not going, your solar PV is still moving, is still generating electricity. So when your business resumes, you can expect your electricity bills to be reduced. Yeah. Right. Actually, I've come to the end of my slides. And I just want to share with the viewers my vision for 2030. It's a question that was posted during the annual meeting of the Global Future Councils that is organized by the World Economic Forum at the end of last year. And of course, as usual, I look forward to your views and look forward to a meaningful discussion later on. So Lionel, it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. Right. It's always very interesting. Whenever I listen to Dr. Chen, there's always something new, a new nugget or a new development as far as the industry in Malaysia is concerned. And what is really encouraging for me, because my involvement in the industry revolves around things like this, is that wherever we are right now, SEDA has always tried to push the envelope always a little bit at a time to get to new places. So thank you very much for that information. And thank you very much for sharing that with us. Now, we also were talking about things being a little bit more interactive. So what we're going to do now is actually have a series of 3 poll questions that we're going to pose to the participants right now. And you should be able to see that on your screen. Now, for those of you who are here, you can reply on your screen. So you just click on your screen for the answers that are given, or the options for the answers that are there, right? So for the first question, we're looking at the future after this pandemic. What do you think this crisis has changed the way in consideration of your company's solar investment project? So it could be cost and budget, economic incentives, government incentives, including tax incentives. You've got regulatory and policy support, environmental whether it's environmentally sustainable, and after-sales service terms. I'm going to give everyone online now participating, you have about 30 seconds to click on your screen to reply, and then immediately after that, we will be able to share the results. So this is going to be interesting, because here we literally have people from across the planet. But as Dr. Chen has pointed out earlier on, this pandemic, COVID-19, affects us across the globe, and it is a universal challenge for all of us here, and particularly for solar energy. But as also mentioned earlier on, this is actually an excellent opportunity for this segment. I mean, here in Malaysia, for example, just to share a bit, part of why it works for us here is you are naturally distanced when you actually do the work. You're stuck somewhere in the middle of nowhere or on top of somebody's rooftop. You know, you've got good ventilation, you're in the hot sun, all the plus points for, you know, being allowed to go back to work. So perhaps this could be that one sector that could help other countries move forward and provide employment. So I think now we're going to go on to the results of those poll questions. And there you have it. Cost and budget, 32%. Economic incentives and government incentives, yes, that's always the case. That's at 38.2%. Regulatory and policy support, 13. What is environmentally sustainable at 11.8. And after-sales service at 3.9. So right off the bat, we're looking here back at dollars and cents, which is a very interesting thing if you think about it, because it's, while the second one after that is economic incentives and government incentives, it is something that it's balanced off. It's no longer a case of, you got to help me out, you got to help out my business. It's coming to a point where renewable energy is on the dot. We can actually do this from a place where it's a simple case of dollars and cents. And with dollars and cents, we'd like to introduce our next speaker. Now, this gentleman as well, like Dr. Chen, is one of those, his team, he and his team is one of those unsung heroes from behind the scene. They actually help the industry out a lot, and they hardly ever get a chance to shine. So I hope that during this session, it's an opportunity for them to be able to share how they've helped the industry carry forward in terms of solar in Malaysia. At this point, I'd like to invite Mr. Rosli Sham Mpia, the Deputy Director for Green Technology Division for MIDA. And I'll leave the rest of the introduction to him. Over to you, Encik Rosli Sham.
Thank you, Mr. Lionel. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone, wherever you are. First of all, I would like to thank Informa Market because for this opportunity for us to share investment opportunity in green technology industry for the green project and also green services in Malaysia. For introduction, MIDA is Malaysian Investment Development Authority. We established in 1967, and MIDA is under MITI, Ministry of International Trade and Industry. We are the first point of contact for company who intend to make investment in Malaysia for the what we call manufacturing and also manufacturing related services. We have 5 core functions. First, promotion. We promote investment in terms of foreign direct investment and also domestic investment to Malaysia. Second, we do evaluation. That means we process application for manufacturing license for the company who like to make manufacturing activity in Malaysia. If they have 2.5 ringgit Malaysia perak capital or engaging with 75 full-time employee, so they need to have a manufacturing license. MIDA will process this application, and then we also process application for incentive. If company produce product for the what we call manufacturing activity or services activity, they have in this our promoted list, so they can apply incentive in MIDA. Normally, for general incentive in MIDA is fine status or ITA. MIDA also process application for expatriate post and also duty exemption for the raw material and component for the manufacturing activity, and also machinery and equipment for the production process. Then third, planning. MIDA will recommend policy and strategy on the industrial promotion and development to our ministry, BP, MOF, and also related ministry. For monitoring, we have what we call dedicated unit for the licensing and incentive compliance for all of application that we approve in Malaysia. And then fifth, under post-investment, we will assist company in the implementation of their operation and their project. Okay, this is the history of green technology incentive in Malaysia. And then this incentive is introduced in budget 2001. This is under Promotion of Investment Act 1986 under MIDA Act. Then this incentive is that time eligible for project owner and energy services company, or we call ESCO, of the renewable energy or energy efficient project. That time, a company can choose either to apply in investment tax allowance or minus status. And then under budget 2014, government introduced this green incentive part under Ministry of Finance. This is under Income Tax Act 1967 from 2014 until 2020. And then for this incentive, this is eligible for industry and commercial owner of project and service provider for green industries. And then for this incentive, now the what we call owner of the project can apply for tax incentive, we call ITA. And then for the service provider, they can apply exemption on income tax exemption or ITE. And then under budget 2020, the government have extended this incentive until 2023. Okay, now this is the incentive that processed by MIDA. We have two types of incentive. First, under Green Technology Incentive, Income Tax Act 1967, ITA is for the project, what we call owner, and then investment tax allowance is for the service provider. We also have another one, incentive we call Waste Eco Park. This is to what we call centralize all of the recycling activity and waste industries in Malaysia. Another what we call act is under PIA 1986. This is processed by MIDA for the recycling activity. This one is under manufacturing activity. Company will apply to the manufacturing industries. In MIDA, we have 6 industry divisions, such as electronic, food industry, metal industry, and so on. It is based on final product of the application. Okay, this is the what we call incentive that provided by MIDA for the investment tax allowance. This is for the project-based activity. That means this is for business purpose or for own consumption. If company fulfill all the requirement for this what we call application, so the company can enjoy income tax exemption of 100% of current capital expenditure incurred from the date of application received by MIDA until 31st December 2020. And then the ITA can be utilized to offset against 70% of statutory income. This is for the previous incentive. After we extended the incentive, now companies still can enjoy 100%, but the procedure different, not from our what we call based on the date received by MIDA, but that one based on the first capital incurred by the company. And then what type of project that eligible for this incentive? First, renewable energy. That means if company generate energy such as electricity, steam, heat, and chill water using RE sources like solar, biomass, biogas, and mini hydro eligible for this incentive. Second, energy efficient. That means if company invest in energy efficient equipment or technology, example, energy efficient motor, variable speed drive compressor, chiller, and cogeneration. Third, green building. That means building owner of the commercial or industrial building that have been awarded DA design assessment from certification body approved by government in Malaysia. Actually, in Malaysia, we have 3 types of verification body for this type green building. First, we call GBI, Green RE, and MICRES. So they need to get DA for design assessment, then apply to MIDA for this incentive. And also Green Data Center. We also have incentive for this GITA for integrated waste management activity. That means if company have activity for waste recycling, recovery, treatment activity, and additional activities such as composting, storage, collection, and disposal. And then for ITE, investment tax exemption, income tax exemption, it is for the service provider. Previously, if this company qualify with all our requirements, they can enjoy income tax exemption of 100% of the income from the year of assessment, where the date of application received by MIDA until year of assessment 2020. But for new guideline, any application submitted by MIDA 1st January 2020, they only can enjoy 70% until 2023. What type of activity that qualify for this incentive? First, renewable energy. It means company need to have integrated activity services such as feasibility study, system design, advisory, consultancy, testing, and commissioning. Other than that, other what we call activities such as energy efficiency, a green building, a green data center, certification or verification body, a green township, and also electrical vehicle, what we call EV equipment. That means they do installation, maintenance, and repair for EV charging equipment. And then this is the criteria for company who like to apply incentive in MIDA for GITA for project. Company must be incorporated under the Company Act 2016. That means company need to register as Sendirian Berhad or Berhad company in Malaysia. And then company also need to comply the 3 green result, conserve the use of energy and other form of resources, or promote the use of renewable energy and recycle waste material resources, minimize the degradation of the environment or reduce greenhouse emission, and promote health and improve environment. And then for ITE, for green services, company also must be incorporated under the Company Act 2016 and has started operation in green services after 25th October 2013. And then company must meet important green criteria. First, they need to employ at least 5 full-time employees, and for new application after what we call 1st January 2020, they need to have 2 competent personnel in their company. And then company must have a green policy related to environment and sustainability. And the important one, the income that qualify for exemption must be derived from green technology services, and income other than that are not qualified for this incentive. This is the application procedure. You can go to our MIDA website and find out our application, GTJA. Then after received by MIDA, we will check all of your application, input and so on. And if everything is complete, so we can bring into our NCI, that means National Committee on Investment, to table your application. After what we call clear in this NCI meeting, we also need to have endorsement from MOF. Then we will issue interim approval letter. This is the process in MIDA. Then after that, company also need to go to MGTC for the what we call qualifying to validate the project, and also to what we call verify the services activity. And then after they got the what we call verification letter from MGTC, so they can submit what we call to IRB to claim their what we call tax incentive. And then actually, sorry. Right. Sorry. Okay, this is the criteria of verification from the GTC. GTC will verify the technical requirement, including the main equipment, asset as major component, and then company need to what we call give MGTC the application form, MIDA, and also interim approval letter from MIDA. And then the criteria, main important criteria is 60% of equipment asset in the GTJA application form. That means the what we call asset for the project should have a 60% requirement for the green, what we call by this MGTC. And then this is guideline for the electricity supply license. Company for the, especially for the solar project, they need to have a license from ST, or we call Energy Commission. That means if they generate electricity below 5 megawatt, they need to go to the EC office in region area, or if they generate above 5 megawatt, they need to go to EC headquarters. And then inside our approval letter, for company that what we call solar PV installation above 24 kilowatt single phase and 72 kilowatt three phase, they need to have what we call license from this ST lah. I think that's all, Mr. Lionel. And then, actually for MIDA, we would welcome any company who would like to discuss about their project in MIDA, because now we are in the transition from the previous guideline and then new guideline. Maybe all of you maybe would like to know more detail about what is the procedure for this incentive. Then we welcome you to come to MIDA and discuss your project. I think, thank you, Mr. Lionel. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Rosli Sham. As you can see here, there is this concerted effort, and then MIDA has really helped in bringing this, well, what was once a very niche, very novelty-related segment of the market to what it is right now. And it's with incentives like this that has really helped us carry forward. So I believe that even as we're just rifling through some of the Q&A coming up, there'll be a lot of questions here, whether the GITA will continue and things like that. And keep those questions coming, because we'd like to address those during the Q&A session later. I believe a lot of you have, and from what I can see, a lot of you have the same questions coming up regarding this. And this is certainly one of those things that actually moves things along as far as our industry is concerned. Now, the next thing we're going to do here is, again, we're going to have another poll question, right? And here we're looking at which factors do you think will influence the decision of a solar energy project investment? Economic viability, profile of the vendors and developers, the financing structure, technology, sustainability, or your economic investment incentives. Okay, whichever it is. Again, ladies and gentlemen, participants, do put your answers in or indicate your answers on the screen in front of you, and we'll be sharing the results in about, give or take, 30 seconds. Okay. Now, just while you all are doing that, I would like also to share a bit of how MIDA has actually helped this industry. The GITA, which is the Green Investment Tax Allowance, and now with the already approved, but we'll wait for more details on this, on the GITE, which is the Green Income Tax Exemption. It's just these two programs here like this have really helped carry our industry forward. And with things like that, right now we're at a point where with the new and improved or reduced prices as far as PV is concerned, plus these sort of incentives, it's solar energy as far as Malaysia is concerned has really come to the fore. It has really given the industry an opportunity and a chance to actually stabilize. And now that we're stabilized, we can actually look at things and say, okay, let's just do this on dollars and cents. All right. And I believe this is one of the good ways that government supports the industry by, okay, I'll give you a bit of a push, but once you guys can start, flapping your wings and flying on your own, carry on. And we are really appreciative of that to MIDA for having these things available. Right, we have the results. So moving right along to the results. There we have it. Economic viability, 39%. The profile of the vendors and developers, 5.1%. Financing structure, 22%. Technology sustainability, 8.5%. And economic investment incentives at 25%. Again, pretty much reflecting back on the first poll question here, we're looking here straight up economic viability and whether or not these things actually can carry forward or not. I mean, even for economic incentives, the next highest one is only 25%, and financing structure. And as far as financing structure is concerned, the next speaker we're bringing up, he comes from the national utility, one of the main utility companies there are, all right? And unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know about you guys or wherever you are in the world, they're often vilified and saying that, oh no, terrible, terrible people. But I would like to assure you that the gentleman I'm introducing to you here, while he does come from the utility, I believe he represents the new face of the utility. People who are interested to carry things forward in a new and spectacular way. I use the word spectacular way, in very interesting ways. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce IR Narinder Singh Joel, the Managing Director for TNBX. Over to you, Narinder.
Thank you very much, Lionel. Very good afternoon. I would say morning to some, right, for this opportunity. Okay. Right, I'm going to share with you something that we have introduced, and the introduction was nice, that a friendly utility in our face, Tenaga Nasional, an agreement would be what we term as a supply agreement with renewable energy. And I'll talk a bit about REX. What has happened since 2011, when we started, the scheme of renewables, as Dr. Chen has shared with you. In 2016, 2017, the quotas were coming to an end. Right? Government introduced something new. It was net energy metering, and the utility joined the bandwagon to support the industry. And as of last, in 2017, we produced this. Okay, I'm just getting my screen right. Okay. What you see here is, just to share with you, it is not easy to change the industry, right? What started off in July 2017, eventually we just got our first customer in July 2019, a good 2 long years, right? With the support of the minister, the ministry, MIDA, and so on and so forth. This is where we are. Right? Let me share with you what supply application with renewable energy is all about. All right. Okay. What we'll share with you for a start will be the kind of achievements that we have got in SARI. This is trying to push the needle. While for a start, through to MCO, we have been very slow in connecting CODs, right? SARI contracts, we have got about 52 megawatts of SARI signed as of within the 1 year itself. Just to show that a contract such as what we have introduced is quite attractive for especially for solar investors to ensure the return on their investment. And this slide is to share with you the kind of industries that have picked up The biggest of them I could see here is manufacturing, right? But we've got a fair share of the whole industry picking up solar, right? Well, it started off about a year ago when the introduction of one-on-one was made by the government, right? NEM has picked up. The one-on-one definitely has picked up a lot of steam, right? Dr. Waini shared with you that we've got about 250 megawatts left from what it was about 15 megawatts when we started. So there's a lot of interest that's garnered as a result of this. And that interest has also leveled up the market for us in terms of the solar investors. What we see now, what you call RPVIs, those guys, those investors or AOs who want to become asset owners. There are 90 of them on the SEDA website. And these are just active guys engaging us. You can see that we have engaged about 61 of them, and 9 of them have taken our offer to use our contract, the utility contract, to actually engage customers. I will come to the contract in a bit. Okay, basically what is SARI then, right? It is an option for customers, for AOs to offer customers solar at zero capex. The challenge is always against financial with respect to collection. Right? We have come up with one option of SARI where customers are charged cents per kilowatt, which is a general PPA, and the utility offers collection services for the customer. What we are moving forward to, right, and option 2 is having a SARI lease. Now, what would a SARI lease be? It's just like leasing a car. It is ringgit per month on a fixed payment scheme, right? What the utility does here is we allow the customers and the AO to collect the totality of the payments due on a single utility bill, right? That option has been the option that we find that assures AOs that money invested can be collected. Okay. Now, the contract we discussed earlier, and I mentioned a couple of times just now, SARI, Supply Agreement with Renewable Energy, consists of 3 parties. It's a tripartite agreement where you have asset owner, you can see him on my left, the prosumer, right, who generates electricity, and then you have the utility there. A traditional agreement is between the AO and the prosumer. The introduction of a utility into this contract is something brand new. I've not seen it around. I hope some of those who are hearing one could share with me your experiences in your respective countries and how the utility plays a part. In this particular contract we signed between the utility, right? The customer is given 2 choices, a meter from the grid and a utility meter actually, for the solar itself, assuring the consumer, the prosumer, that the energy generated is well metered, right? That what he's getting money, what he pays for. What you see, the center person there, TNBX, we call it the collecting agent. We act on behalf of the utility to assist asset owners with respect to ensuring that the money collected from the customer is paid to them. Right? So that's the general role of TNBX here. Now, option 1 is a traditional SARI. This is the first option that we came up with. And then we moved forward. After 6 months, we realized that there has been a challenge with respect to there are customers who are actually not owners of a building, right? And there are AOs who actually are short of cash. So we came up with a contract where you actually are allowed, right? Let me go back a step here, sorry. An option 2, where the tenants of a building are allowed to actually work together with the landlord to offer a similar contract, right? And banks are able to work, and we are able to work with bankers doing settlements on both sides. That is option 2. This is generally a PPA. As of end of this year, towards the end of this year, we are going for something we call a SARI lease, option 3. In option 3, right, the AO offers the prosumer something different from traditional PPA. He offers in RM per month basis, a smaller term contract where the customer, the AO recovers within a shorter period of time. And finally, hopefully we get bankers coming on board. We're going to introduce this contract where we have a SARE lease with bankers who seem interested in actually financing the customer directly. And the customer engages the EPC contractor to do this. And the utility plays a part with respect to collecting the monthly dues from the customer, and from the prosumer, I mean. So these are the 4 options that we have in place. The first 2 are already there. The next 2 would be hopefully by the end of this year. Now, all this that we offer does come with a price, right? There is a pricing model that utility charges. Standard pricing for kilowatt are used within 0 to 500 kilowatt, between 500 to 1 megawatt, and those above a megawatt. What we recently have introduced, you can see new on the top right-hand corner, is customers who are actually engaging large prosumers, universities and so on, where the solar load, generally on Celco basis, goes above 2 to 10 megawatts. Right? So we have actually introduced a tier mechanism so that it becomes cost effective for them to offer such solutions. What you see on the lower end is generally the cost structure for solar lease, right? Something, a small amount, right, paid to the utility for us to offer these services back to the customer. That's a pricing model. As a utility, we have been actively engaging with customers. The events that you see on the screen are generally events that we have done on webinar, engaging my customers, which are generally AOs, right? Engaging them, letting them know as to the services being offered by us. And as I said, actively we have got 9 on board, 15% of those that we have engaged. Now, offering such a solution doesn't come without challenges. There are definitely challenges, right? I would like to share these challenges with you guys. Probably some of you who are utilities there may want to look at this option in offering and encouraging the use of solar. Internally, customer clarification and negotiation of terms of contract, those are the internal challenges, right? Requirement from our asset owner on modification of terms. A lot of our partner AOs require us to modify the contracts to suit the PPA they have in hand. Generally, this contract works on a basis that is a single bill to the customer. As such, the owner's name that appears on the PPA needs to be on the same name. So we have issues like deposits, changes from one tenant to the other, and so on and so forth. We have one of the other things that we're looking at here is SLA with AOs and operators. Every AO has its own requirement, the kind of service level that he requires. So we are managing that challenge. Handling and tracking of multi-agreements. Actually, this is generally of customers like university, where they have about 15 to 30 meters behind the utility meter, and they require each building to be metered. The metering that we offer customers here is basically cloud metering, right? Using a telco's GSM SIM card, as a result of which there are multi-meters on the tail end connected to one single meter on the front end. So that's a challenge for us to record the total consumption on both sides and managing metering requirements. Externally, we have challenges like the ST licensing processes and requirements, right? That's one challenge that we have to go out. Getting bankers buy-in on the lease concept. Option 4 talked about the lease, and we are actively engaging with 2 banks now, right, with respect to how to work forward with this lease concept. Getting approvals from regulators is definitely a new challenge. Getting the totality of the contract period reduced from 25 now to 21 years, and so on and so forth. Getting the license approved on a timely basis. Getting MIDA to facilitate the understanding of GITA, as what you heard just now. The gentleman, she explained very much what is GITA and GITI with respect to solar lease models. And obviously, the post-MCO challenges of customers, right? Looking at the MD and the connected solar sales. Finally, just to share with you what's coming on board would be moving ahead. 2020 is definitely a year that we all reckon with, challenges of the global economy. What you see here is some of the new things that we're offering customers. SARE agreement, we call it SARE 2.0. After 1 year of learning, we have actually modified the agreement. We are releasing something called SARE lease by the end of this year. And the third one is quite exciting. The one which changes everything has been COVID. Right? We are offering e-sign. Right? That means most contracts would be signed electronically and no more handling in a direct face-to-face basis. In the future, we're looking at SARE with bankers, SARE with battery storage, and definitely, as Dr. Veni has finished off her trial with us, Tenaga National, we're looking at community-based peer-to-peer in the future. I reckon that wraps up what I have for today. And just to add on, finally, the utility itself actually has embarked on something we call REX. We are offering IREX presently, which has been a requirement. Majority of our MNCs, as you can see listed down below, we have been actively trading about 800,000 REX this year. Hopefully we hit 1.2 million REX next year. So this registry it's got an important registry. Majority of the customers going for solar, especially Selco customers, have requested us to underwrite REX for themselves. So through this mechanism of MGUTs, right, TNBX offers REX to customers. And thank you very much. Last of my slide. Sorry, I could not see the totality of it. This is the young team that you have supporting you guys in these two options on solar, SARE, and REX. With that, over to you, Lionel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Narinder, for that. As I was saying earlier on, these are very new, and a lot of things that TNBX is bringing to the table has occurred in the last 1 to 2 years, maybe as far back as 3 years ago. And these things are really propelling things forward. For us in the industry, we're very excited about this because what is happening is that it's opening up new opportunities and new avenues, different businesses that are available, right? And we're looking at now getting into things like cloud, big data, smart contracts. All of this, TNBX is helping to facilitate this. And I think that's very progressive from a utilities point of view to help support this industry. Now, we're going to get to our third and final poll question for this session. And we're going to move over to that right now. And what factors do you think have raised the awareness and helped solar project investment or gain attention? The declining cost of solar energy deployment, awareness of the benefits, regulatory and policy support. And the last option there is economic incentives, government incentives, including tax incentives. So if you can, kindly indicate on the screen as well, and we will share the results immediately with you. Curious to see what it will be like, because there seems to be this general trend here that, excuse me, this general trend here that economics currently now rules. It's no longer a case of, that's nice, if the government's going to help me, I can get this done. I believe the economics of solar as a renewable energy, as a viable way. Some of the questions here popping up right now also are talking about battery storage, which is the next chapter coming up. How near, how far, that depends on each individual country. But these are all in line and moving in that general direction. So it's really exciting times. All right, so with that, these are the results from the poll questions for the third poll question. And declining costs, 28%. Awareness of the benefits, 38%. That's really cool. Regulatory policy, 11.9. And economic incentives, 21, right? So again, declining costs, economics, awareness of benefits, still economics. Because I don't know about other parts of the world or in other countries, but in Malaysia, we tend to be a little bit more, I would like to use the word practical, that we actually look down at the bottom line, dollars and cents. Will this make money for me? Will this save money for me? Right? And that's where we usually look at. So right now, what I'm going to do here is just run a very quick introduction and give you an overview of what is actually happening in the industry as it stands right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just give a quick overview of what the MPIA is about. These are committee members. Don't worry, I'm going to rifle through them really quickly and get to the point where this is what we're actually looking at here. Now, as far as industry associations are concerned in this country, it's not big, it's not small, it's somewhere in the middle. But we kind of pride ourselves on being very vocal and having an opportunity to engage with the authorities. We usually focus on 3 Ps, what we like to call it. Policy, program, and pocket. Policy is a national target that is set. Programs are what the panelists or the speakers who mentioned that earlier, whether it's the net energy metering, the self-consumption, the large-scale solars, the P2p, third-party access, or enhanced time of use. And these are the programs that are running. And of course, for the industry side, we like to focus on the third P, which is pocket. How much money is actually saved or how much money we put back into our pockets. To give you an overview of what that's like as far as this country is concerned, this next simple table just gives you a very simple snapshot of what is available in Malaysia at the moment. Now, we're trying to capitalize on the fact that our lowest performance, so to speak, is actually where Germany is near its highest end. So if you're a Malaysian and you're listening to this, there is still a long, long way to go and a lot more places we can play around with, and the opportunities are there. What's more interesting and important and exciting is with platforms provided by, say, for example, TNBX, and what is available in terms of incentives from MIDA and the direction taken by SEDA. All of these things here are propelling us into a new forward-looking environment of where renewable energy can go. Now, this next chart we have here is basically what the association predicted way back in 2016 and where things are right now. And to our very, very happy surprise, what the government is projecting is actually ahead of what the industry is projecting, which is actually good news for us, which means there is actually more space for us to play and a bigger area for us to grow. And it's also indicative of a more aggressive stance taken by the government to actually push renewable energy, particularly solar, obviously, forward in that manner, right? These are the current PV schemes. Won't dwell too much on that. Basically, it's whether it's self-consumption, net energy metering, or large-scale solar. These are the most common ones at the moment. I think what is more interesting here are snapshot of available rooftops. Now, although Malaysia has a lot of, well, we don't have that much space, but we have enough space to do land-based solar installations in terms of large-scale solar. These numbers here, barely 1% tap of the rooftops in Malaysia. And this is where the industry is actually looking at and what we are actually interested to capitalize on, right? 3.2 million residential houses, still untouched, largely untouched, right? And we have a lot of it. Actually, I have to admit that 1,000 shopping malls isn't exactly true. It's not true at all. There's actually more shopping malls in Malaysia than it's actually for 1,000. But again, here we are at an opportunity where solar is the renewable energy that we can actually fit onto as many of these places as possible. It is coming to a point where it's more it's almost like a renovation on your house rather than it's a full plant installation. It has that sort of nature. It's a very narrow, but it's a very deep niche. So you can slot in at any which level that you find that that's where your business might be able to work or operate at. All right. Just to give you an overview here, with the support of the GITA, these are the tariffs in Malaysia. And as an example of a snapshot of the capacities here, tariff B, C1, C2, D, E2, all this information is available from TMB's website. You can actually go there and actually have a look at what these things involve. Some of these structures are tiered, and yeah, even with that, you can actually see it's 3 to 4 years. So it's really, really quite fast. I know some of my members who might be from the association who are looking at this right now will be probably shouting in my ears, "Don't be stupid. It's actually faster than that." But yeah, so we'd like to be conservative for the moment, but it's still fairly decent. 3 to 5 years, really, really fast on your payback. In summary, what we like to look at over here is that with the continuing tax incentive, a coherent public-private policies is what we're looking at. We have a geographic advantage as well. Fun fact, if you're on the equator, it doesn't really matter which way your panels tend to face. because as long as it's facing basically up, you're good to go. And what we like here is that where we are as far as the country is concerned, we've taken the best of a lot of the cultures and the way things operate and how things operate within this country. And that has actually helped us come up with these policies to carry the industry forward. All right. So this is a very quick overview. I know that I was talking a little bit too fast, but that's just an overview. Bottom line is this. The Malaysian rooftop market is largely untouched. The opportunities for you to engage in a tripartite agreement to sell electricity to your neighbor, or as what some of these questions now coming up through the Q&A on the P2p. Some of you are already asking, when can we get engaged in the P2p? And some of you are actually asking, can we get more detail on the virtual net energy metering? All of that we hope to cover right now in the panelist session. So as we move on to the panelist session, I'd like to invite one more panelist who has been sitting very patiently and quietly, and he is representing the industry here. And this individual is actually Tunku Akmaluddin Zakri, who is Business Development Head of the Anta Solar Sdn Bhd. He's also the Vice President of the association. And right now, I would like to invite all four of you to, well, sort of change your mind now from speaker to panelist mode, as we feel some of these questions that are coming through at the moment. All right. And okay, if I could just I just want to kick things off right now. And from the utility, if I may just ask this, Narinda, if I could ask you, between ground-mounted systems and roof-mounted systems, what exactly is your take on this, and where should we be going on this? Over to you.
Thank you, Lionel. Right, definitely, I would suggest that rooftop, which has about 18,000 megawatts, should be the first option for customers. But not to say that large-scale solar and economics of scale should be not given priority at all. But I reckon there is a lot of other places where we can do the LSS. One of the areas that we tried out during LSS3 was giving the option for floating solar. We gave some extra points to these guys, but obviously they did not make the cut with respect to the rates. Hopefully, with LSS4, that a specific quota of 300 to 400 megawatts is given to floating solar, and that will allow for the arable, lakes and the catchment areas for the utility, especially hydro dams and so on, to be used for these purposes, rather than just cutting green to be greener.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Tunku Akmal, if I may get the point of view from the industry, where do you see things going with what has been shared overall? That is all like policy and 30,000 feet, but you and your company are on the ground. What is it really like in terms of roof mounting, or what Narinda has just shared? Could you share your thoughts, please?
Hi, Lionel. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us in this talk. So basically, in the Malaysian market now, everybody's going crazy for the PPA game. But just before I get into detail about what this is, I just want to talk to you guys about opportunities in rooftops and ground mounted. For us people doing business in Malaysia, what you can notice is in the grounds in Malaysia, if you leave even a little spot in the ground, something will grow. So for me in Malaysia, rooftop is definitely more important than land mounted, because land mounted uses up space, and sometimes big chunks of it will sometimes change the environment in that area. There's a little bit of complaints there, and I believe wasting area is not a very good thing. So I'm passionate for the roofs itself. So what people do now is play PPA games. There's two types of PPA games, basically. There's the TPA, and there is the PPA from the government. So when you have a private PPA, what you see is you can make deals very quickly between 2 or 3 organizations and you can flip these businesses really quick. While if you're talking about a government sovereign PPA from the LSS bid, you have to bid, you have to win, you have to qualify, you have to pay for all the paperwork before you even do a submission, which will cost you a couple of $100,000 depending on how big you are. So PPA game seems to be very strong here. It just for foreigners out there who want to come in, you can play in for both games. But as I said, I'm a roof enthusiast. You know, I feel that roof deals can be converted really, really quickly. I hope that sort of answers your question. To the next one, Lionel.
Thank you, Tunku. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up about the different ways that things are actually happening. One of the questions raised actually was on, which Narendra actually touched on, and I think this might be a question directed to Encik Rosli Sham about solar leasing as well. And if you could, Encik Rosli, if you could share a bit on the leasing aspect of this from MIDA's point of view, that would help. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lionel. Actually, for the extension of this new guideline under budget 2020, the government also extended to the solar leasing. That means if company qualify to all of our requirements, this company can enjoy income tax exemption of 70% of statutory income for solar leasing activity for a period of 10 years of assessment, and this incentive will be given based on what we call tier. 3 megawatt until 10 megawatt for 5 years, and 10 megawatt until 30 megawatt for 10 years. And then for the eligibility, that means the company which provide solar leasing services, which been verified by SEDA and be listed under RPVI directory. And then the company need to fulfill 2 important criteria. First, they need to enjoy at least 5 full-time employees working in Malaysia, including at least 2 competent personnel in green technology. And second, the income that qualify for exemption must be derived from sale of electricity or leasing activity. And then for the verification, this what we call incentive, company need go to SEDA to what we call to verify their GITE leasing activity. I think that's all from me, Mr. Lainan.
All right. Thank you so much, Encik Rosli Sham. One of the questions that we're looking at here, we see a lot of, there's a theme here running through a lot of on the commercial side of things. But one of the questions actually raised from the Q&A was, and this is directed to you, Dr. Chen. It's regarding the P2p trading. The question, of course, is when is it open to the market and how do we apply? And what types of tariff groups are involved in this sort of thing? So we're now moving from, say, what Tunku has gone from the large scale to rooftop, which is medium, and now we're looking at how residentials can be involved. Dr. Chen, if you could share a bit. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Lionel. Yeah, actually, there has been quite a lot of interest from the industry, and not just the industry, even the local authorities and the public university on the P2p energy trading. So Lionel, what happened is that with this P2p energy trading, we are really at the very early cups of it. We have just completed our sandbox trial in June of this year. So we have just closed it and we are preparing a report submitting to our ministry. But perhaps let me just share with you some of the key takeaways or key findings that we actually found from this period of trial run. And for our trial run, we actually have 6 NEM prosumers and 8 electricity consumers. And just like what you have found out in the early part of the discussion, that Malaysian consumers and prosumers, they make decisions on this kind of investment in solar based on their economic returns. So similarly, when they take part in the P2P, they will only take part in the P2P if it makes economic sense to them based on the small samples that we have. And the reason why we said that was because for this particular sandbox run, any untraded electricity is actually sold to TMB at zero cost. So that means that TMB gets the electricity for free. And it was unfortunate because during this MCO period, there was a lot of, there was no business activity. So there was a lot of untraded electricity. So it did not work out in favor of the prosumers who ended up having a lot of untraded electricities. And because the consumers who are buying it, they are not having a lot of activities. So of course, in real life, we can mitigate that quite easily by just increasing the pool of consumers. And also, we noticed that in other jurisdictions where P2P is on, the retailers which act as a retail of the last resort, they do pay some minimum price for the untraded electricity. But to your question, when will this P2P be available? It will be a discussion with the ministry and of course with the Energy Commission and TMB, and of course with the industry as well, because we do need to have the right business model on board so that when the P2P is launched live, it will be successful. But I think suffice to say that there has been a lot of interest in it because it really gives a lot of opportunities to balance out the supply and the demand of solar electricity. Currently, they are not well balanced. In some buildings, they have a lot of rooftop space, but no demand. But in some buildings, there's a lot of demand, but they do not have enough rooftop space. So P2P is definitely addressing that kind of gap. Thanks, Lionel. Over to you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Chen. Tunku, if I can just ask your take on what has been shared so far, in terms of how policies are written and in terms of how things are done. Would you like to comment on that? It's a bit unfortunate we're running suddenly very fast out of time, but yeah, if you could share your thoughts, please, Tunku. Over to you.
Yeah, quite interesting what you're talking about. Can you repeat exactly what you said, Lionel? I'm trying to get you what your question is again.
Well, all right. You see, a lot of stuff that we've heard about today, a lot of the policy and the new things that are coming in at the moment. If I were to ask you point blank, has there been enough industry engagement on this, and maybe your thoughts on that in drafting out these kinds of plans and policies?
Right. So I'm hearing a lot of new words these days, synthetic agreements and virtual power plant. So basically, Lionel, they haven't really talked to us in the industry that much about how to pull out the dimensions of what's going on. And I think you guys should come and engage and maybe ask the association to give in our 2 cents on how we think a P2P should be pulled off and whatever other fancy PPA agreements that you have termed so far.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. So, yeah. So very clear signal to those people in the authorities and government here. It's a bit unfortunate that we'll run out of a lot of time, but if I can sum up some of the things that basically try to bring these things all together. The industry overall is asking for a 360 engagement. Engage the industry, engage stakeholders, and reach out and discover new stakeholders that are actually involved in the industry. Here we're talking about battery storage, and the first thing you talk about battery storage is, what do you do with the old batteries? You know, all these are new things that are coming in, and I think it's very clear from the industry point of view. A word to the authorities: come and talk to us. Come and talk to new players. Come and talk to new technology owners or providers to formulate these new policies and direction. The other thing I also would like to say is that it's very clear also, and I hope that those of you from overseas are looking at here at what Malaysia has. There's clarity in terms of policy and program, and the way industry interacts with the government on this is a government which is open and progressive to the industry input as well. This is something that we are hoping that others will be able to emulate, and we hope that whatever we're doing here, we're not the biggest, brightest, or the best, but we are certainly carrying things forward in a very structured, clear, concise, and directed motion forward into where we're going with renewable energy here. All right, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we have come to the end of this rather lively, and the questions are still coming. We do apologize. What we will try and do our best is, with the questions that have been fielded, there are a lot more here. Just a quick one also, I was reminded, on cogeneration, there was a question on cogeneration. Does it fall under this? It actually falls under energy efficiency. So to the person who posed that question, please engage MIDA on that on cogen. Your incentive is parked under energy efficiency. All right, so I hope that helps a bit. Again, now, with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, your attention, and for spending your morning, your evening, or your afternoon with us. Again, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Ryzen Energy, for taking care of this session and for looking after us and helping to make all of this happen. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much again for your time. And thank you so much to the panelists and the speakers who fielded these questions, basically being fired from the hip into the crowd. Thank you again for your time, your effort, and your input. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Lionel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lionel.
Thank you, Dr. Chan. Thank you, Narendra.
Cheers.